Welcome to the Monique Guiled Method Show, where business meets science and intuition on WGSO 990 AM and streaming live on WGSO.com. Monique Guild's unique technique leverages her cutting-edge and no-nonsense approach to evaluate you, your business, and your projects, to see and pinpoint blocks, and as a futurist, she has the know-how to catapult your business to the next level. So call in with your questions to 504-556-9696. And now, here's the host, Monique Guiled.
Hello, I am Monique Guiled, and oh God, this is so exciting. This is the Monique Guiled radio. It's the Monique Guiled Method radio show. I am so excited to be here in New Orleans. I am from New Orleans. I'm a native of New Orleans. I went to school at McDonough 15 in the French Quarter. I went to McGee's afterwards, and to be here doing my first radio show, my own radio show, is the coolest thing in the whole world. I love the city of New Orleans. It actually brings tears to my eyes to think about how much I love this city. I really, really do. And I'm so grateful you're here with me. I have taught this method, the Monique Guiled method, for over 20 years. I've worked all over the world in every kind of imaginable situation where a business or product or project has become stuck or blocked. And I actually have an inherited ability from my dad where he could have a patient walk in the door and tell you everything about that person before they open their mouth. And my grandmother had the same ability. And I actually, all I have to do is hear somebody's voice, and I know exactly what's caused a business to get stuck on an atomic and molecular level. And I also know what to do to turn it around. And this ability, the one thing I'll say to you is that we all have abilities. We all have these innate abilities and these skills. And as kids, if we come from chaotic environments, if we come from environments that are, well, I'll just speak for myself. I came from a very high-profile, volatile situation, very volatile. My mom married 3 doctors, and the first one being my dad. The second one was this world-renowned guy who was backed by the Kellen Ford Foundation, and he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. But in the 70s, it became one of the top 4 federal cases in Louisiana, and we were followed by the FBI and CIA. So at a really early age, I had to know who the good guys were from the bad guys, because there was some really, really bad stuff going down. And I didn't know at that time that this ability that I had was being seriously exercised. And I tell you all this because as kids, if you've grown up in environments that are stressful, or there's addictive personalities, or there are people who are just, or if you're on your own the whole time and having to raise yourself, you know, what happens is we become neurologically hardwired in a way as a result of that environment. And that neurology causes us to think a certain way. And every time we think a thought, a chemical gets released in the body. And our bodies get used to that homeostatic chemical flow, if you will. And as we get older, the body will crave more and more of a chemical hit from the past. And therefore, your body, as you get older, ends up running the show because it will keep you stuck in the past. It'll keep you in repetitive patterns. And it all comes from our upbringing. It all comes from our childhood. And so as a result of this ability that I did inherit, I have clients who come to me that cannot figure out like why their product is stuck, why their project or their multi-million-dollar hospital project is stuck. And I always want to know who is overseeing that project. Who is the one that's overseeing that business? Because whoever is overseeing that business is the person that has the effect on the entire, whether it's the company or if you are launching a project or a product, or if the money's stuck, they're the person that has that impact, that influence. So when you think back about your own childhood and you think about what you grew up in, that if you have a stuck career or product or project or business that's stuck now, I guarantee you that your background has absolute influence on what is happening to you today, 100%, hands down. And so when a client comes to me, or the one thing I love about radio so much is when I've been interviewed on the radio, we get to take all these callers. And just from hearing your voice, I'm able to know what's caused your situation to happen, and then what to do to turn it around and develop a new type of situation. So don't hesitate in calling in, because I'd love to take your calls here. I absolutely would love to talk to you. But so first, what you want to do is you want to begin to look at your background. You want to look at, what was it about your upbringing? Were you a person were you the star student? Were you the perfectionist? Were you the isolator? Were you the crazy one? Were you the crazy maker? Were you the one who was the rebel, so to speak? Being a rebel actually is a really, really good thing. Like for me, as a result of what I grew up in, I had to learn how to run things, control things, see things, know things at a super early age. I had to know things before I walked into the house of what was going to be that particular day. And as a result of that skill, though, that I learned how to do ended up being the biggest blessing in the whole world. Because later on, when I was 28 years old, I ended up running a corporation. I ran 43 centers for a corporation across the nation. I was the director of these centers nationwide. But I was working for a guy who was written up in the LA Times as being one of the worst people you could work for in Los Angeles, and he was my direct boss. But because I was so used to running things as a child and being so stressed out all the time, it was so easy for me to work with this guy. I mean, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, this is perfect for me, being with this guy, Jeffrey. And he actually owned a company called Great Expectations. And after a couple months of working there with him, I ended up having a write-up in the LA Times, and I was featured on the Metro section of the LA Times. And they called me the bubbly Sherlock Holmes. So our skills, the things that we learn as kids, even though it may be a real, like a nightmare situation, the skills you learn can end up being your biggest benefit as long as your body doesn't control the show later on in life. Now, what do I mean by that? So here I was working for this guy, right? And I was doing extremely well under this stressful situation. However, back at home, I was living with this guy, my boyfriend. This is years and years ago. And it was a nightmare situation. And my best friend, Patsy, came to me. Sorry, it's a little hard touching on all this. But I got to tell you where I come from, because I can't teach you if I haven't been there. So Patsy said to me, she comes to me and she says, Moni, she says, if I don't say this to you, I'm not your friend. But I'm afraid if I do say this to you, you will not be my friend anymore. And she says, I fear for your life. And so this guy was, very controlling, we'll just leave it at that. And so I did end up living that situation. And at the exact same time, because I was working for this guy and because my body was so stressed out, I had an ongoing period for 3 months. My body couldn't stop bleeding. It couldn't shut down because of all this stress. Now, I tell you all of this because I want you to look at your own lives right now. Where are you having certain amount of stress in your own life? Or are you taking care of someone else who needs to be taking care of their own selves? Or are you running and controlling and have all your focus on someone else when really you should be having the focus on yourself and what are you developing in your own life? What are you creating in your own life? And I'll get to intuitive goal setting. We're going to have a couple commercials here in a minute, but after the break, I'm going to talk about intuitive goal setting, which is something I teach my clients how to do, how to set their intuitive goals, their soul's purpose goals. How do you know when you're on your intuitive goal soul track? How do you know when you're off of it? How is your intuition speaking to you? And what are the blocks that prevent you from hearing how you're being guided? And once you start to identify how those blocks are affecting you and learn how to identify how your intuition's speaking to you, I'm telling you, the sky is the limit. And once you start taking action towards yourself and taking care of yourself and healing what needs to be blocked in you, there isn't anything you can't accomplish. I'm a direct product of that statement, I promise you. The Conscious Life Expo is excited to announce our virtual event February 19th to the 21st. COVID lockdown will continue into February, impacting the opening of the LAX Hilton to events and conferences. We have organized the Expo as a virtual event, including a customized designed 3D virtual exhibit hall and multi-channel live stream conference. Through our virtual partners, the Expo will be able to broadcast around the country and around the world, becoming a global forum and marketplace for products, motivation, community, and progressive ideas. Join us for the 2021 Conscious Life Expo.
Just take those old records off the shelf.
Hi there, this is Monique Guild, and welcome to the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. I'm so excited that you guys are here with me. If you want to call in, if you have any business questions or career questions or questions about your product or project or why something may be stuck, don't hesitate to call in 504-556-9696. And again, this is Monique Guild with the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. So just to do a little recap on what we were talking about a moment ago is what are the obstacles? What are the things that cause our business or products or projects or companies to get stuck now? And my philosophy and my experience and years, I've done this for over 20, 25 years now, as a futurist and business intuitive and turnaround development strategist. I know that's like a mouthful. I am able to know exactly what's caused a business, product, or project to get stuck on an atomic and molecular level just from hearing someone's voice. And I also get information. I see things, I hear things, I get blocks of information, and this is not unusual. I mean, Steve Jobs is a visionary. I could go on with Einstein. People receive blocks of information, and they get information in the middle of the night. In fact, stop and think for a minute. How do you receive information? How do you do you follow your gut instincts? Do you hear things? Do you get pictures? Do you get downloads? Do your dreams guide you? How do you receive your guidance? How do you know what your next step is? How do you determine what your next step is? How do you feel that inner guidance when you need to know exactly what to do in a moment's notice in a situation? I'll tell you what I do. I stop and I meditate. I meditate a lot. I've taught meditation to companies like John Arrow Prudential Real Estate Company. I've taught it to companies privately, you name it. It's a business meditation. Maybe one day I'll teach it for a couple of minutes on this show. But I meditate, I journal. And when I'm journaling, I'll ask questions to myself. If there's something that I'm figuring out, I will sit and I'll write. And I'll write and I'll write and I'll write out the different scenarios and I'll write out the different possibilities or different ways that something could happen. And then I'll continue to ask myself and answer questions until I feel like a click inside. I'll feel like a little something inside of me where it just clicks and it just feels right. And then I feel excited and I know that that's the direction to go in. So journaling, meditation. I also get like a film that runs in my mind when somebody starts to talk about business stuff. I start to see a film that runs, and when people talk about personalities, their partners that they're in partnership with, or let's say if they're, looking for financing for a company, I'll get a rundown on those personalities. And so, so sorry about that. What do you do to have a go-to method when you are figuring out your next step? What do you do? It's important to know. And then how does that feedback come to you? That's your inner guidance speaking to you. And everybody has different ways of hearing how their inner guidance is speaking to them. And again, that can be through like signs. I'll pray for a sign all the time. Like, okay, universe, give me a sign. Which direction should I go? Or should I go? Should I not go? Or should I, whatever the should is, be doing this or that? And I'll get some sort of sign and I pay attention to that sign. And the other day I was actually driving down the street in a car on the side. It said Malibu, and that's actually where I live now. I have a place here and a place in Malibu, and I thought, is that a sign? Am I supposed to be going back soon? So that's really important. This is also part of the intuitive goal process that I mentioned right before the commercial break. What are your intuitive goals? What are your soul's purpose goals? How do you know when you're on your intuitive goal soul track? How do you know when you're off of it? What are the blocks that prevent us from hearing how we're being guided? Blocks like grief, resentment, negative thinking. I'm going to tell you right now, all those resentments you have against your business partners or in your family, that is the biggest business block ever, because it keeps you so stuck in the past, and you end up bringing your past into your present, and then you create your future from that past. And if you don't want to keep repeating what you've been doing, you got to stop doing what you've been doing and create a whole new situation so that you can, well, it's not about creating a new situation. It's about figuring out what has you stuck. It's about turning around the energy that's had you blocked and figuring out what that possibly is. So I hope all this is making sense. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to call in to 504-556-9696. I'd be happy to answer any of your business questions, anything that may have your product or project or anything that's stuck in your business or career life. Please don't hesitate to call in. Love to take callers. So as I said to you at the beginning of the top of the show, that I didn't say this part, actually. It's the personal stuff that will get the business stuff blocked. I don't care if I'm dealing with a diplomat in El Salvador to a mom who is a stay-at-home mom, and she is figuring out what she's going to do next. It's always the personal stuff that will get the business stuff blocked. Now, why is that? Because personally, the personal stuff is the stuff of the heartstrings. It's the stuff that is going to really get you in your gut. It's the stuff that tugs at your heart in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night. It's that personal stuff that's going to wake you up and knock, knock, knock and drive you crazy, right? And you got to start thinking about it all. And so that energy personally carries a certain frequency atomically to it. And it's so powerful that you will begin to attract in people, places, events, situations that are atomically on a frequency that are specific to that heartstring situation. Or that gut hurt or whatever it is. And so it's crucial to, begin to process grief, definitely heal the resentments. Because resentments, oh my God, I don't know if you've ever heard the statement, resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? Like you think, like you're resenting and hating on somebody, but actually you're the one who's sitting with all that crap inside of you running through your body chemically and neurologically. And if the resentment is super big, I promise you that person is in your life to show you what you have not taken care of from the family of origin. And the situation has only gotten bigger because it hasn't been addressed. And the body, as we get older, will crave more and more of a chemical from that past situation as a child. And all this stuff, 100% attracts the business, because what happens is the business or your career, or even you not being able to figure out what you're going to do next, is a chemical addiction related to the familial history. Did you get that? I'll say it again. So, all the situation you're in now, no matter how big it is or how small it is, or a resentment that you have, or let's say grief, as big as that resentment is, or the chaos you're in, or the distractions you're in, like getting into everybody else's business, absolutely has something to do with your past and what happened to you in your upbringing, that your body started, not your body, but your brain, you became, your thought process happened as a result of what you grew up in. How you think now is a result of what you grew up in. Your body helped you to neurologically hardwire in a certain way. The chemicals that flowed through your body as a kid as a result of the environment you were in caused your neurology now and why your body is craving certain chemicals now. So in override all that, you get to learn to set these intuitive goals that I'm talking about, these soul's purpose goals, which are goals that are so exciting that it's all you can think about until they happen. It's like when you're a kid and you're thinking about your first girlfriend or your first boyfriend or your first bike or your first car, and it's all you can think about. They are all you can think about until they materialize. It's about getting excited about life like that now as an adult in 10 different areas. And I'll get to those 10 areas when we come back from commercial break. But I'm excited to get your calls. Again, 504-556-9696. This is Monique Guild, host of the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. Looking forward to your calls.
Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Got another mouth to feed. Leaving with the babies till the mama call the grave digger. Gone with the fallen leaves. Am I coming?
Hello, this is Monique Guild of the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. I am so looking forward to being a keynote speaker at the Conscious Life Expo this year. The whole event's been set up as a virtual event. February 21st, join me at 10:30 a.m. Central Time for a wealth-building workshop like none other. ConsciousLifeExpo.com. Get your tickets and join me. We're going to have a great time.
Don't believe me, just watch. Come on.
Hello, this is Monique Guild, and welcome back to the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. I'm so excited you're joining me today. This is actually my very first radio show of my own show. I've been interviewed quite a bit, but to have my own show is super exciting. And let me ask you a question. Have you ever asked yourself, how far can my business go? What are my true strengths? What should I really be doing in my career? Why do I feel so stuck? What is my next step? Well, joining you today is me. I am Monique Guild, and I'm a futurist, business intuitive, turnaround, and development strategist. And I get to work with people all over the world that have become stuck or blocked in business. I've worked with family partnerships. I've worked with, I'll give you an example of a guy I worked with out of, I guess I can say this. Yeah, out of Denver. There is a very large commercial green sustainable builder company, and they're, one of the partners had become majorly stuck in business. And he was actually $400,000 in debt to the company and about to be fired. And I was working with the owner of the company, Rick. And I said to Rick, I said, let me work with this guy. And he said, absolutely not. There's no way in God's green earth it's not going to happen. And as a result of my inherited ability, just so you know, in case you're just joining us now, I have an inherited ability. I'm able to know, just from hearing your voice, I'm able to know what's caused a business or a product or project to get stuck on an atomic and molecular level. And I know exactly what to do to turn it around. And so finally, Rick agreed he would allow me to work with this partner. And we started working together. In the first 20 minutes, I discovered what was up, like what had him stuck. And he swore, I get downloads of information. I see things, I hear things, I get pictures. It just is what it is. You can either believe it or not. It is what it is. It's taken me all over the world. You can Google my name and you'll see. And I just have a skill. I have an ability with what I do. And so, and I was able to determine, long story short, Chris swore he would never be like his dad, a white-collar worker with 2.5 kids and a white picket fence and working a cubicle all day long. And here he was doing that exact thing. And he loved extreme sports skiing. And I knew that if I could tap into the neurology of his extreme sports, we could get this situation turned around pretty quickly. And because you can use your neurology from your history to benefit you as long as you clear up the blocks that are blocking you. Blocks like grief, addiction. Addictions are a huge block, whether it's addiction to drugs, alcohol, pornography, spending, I mean, you name it, whatever your addiction may be, sugar. Those addictions block you from hearing your abilities and your skills and anything that really is a distraction, like a major distraction. If you're a major caretaker and you're always taking care of other people or focusing on them, or you're, let's say you're an angry person and you're resentful and you're constantly in anger and resentment, that is a huge block. There's no way for you to hear how your next step is or how you're being guided. But once you identify what those blocks are and you begin to heal that area, you begin to hear more and more what your, not only what your abilities are and your skills are, and you get to hear your guidance, but you also begin to override the neurology of your past, which is key here. And this is what I teach my clients to do, is to attach to a future reality that they have yet to experience and download neurologically and chemically from that future reality. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to say it again. You're downloading from a future reality that you have not experienced yet, chemically and neurologically, or I should say neurologically and chemical, because your neurology has chemicals that will flow through your body, and you want to experience, when you want to create a new situation, an unknown situation, you get to download from that unknown first. Now, how do you do that? So I'm going to go back to a simple example that I mentioned earlier. As a kid, when you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you wanting a new car or a bike, and or a certain job, and literally you're obsessed with that person or you're obsessed with that car. You can't stop looking at pictures of that car, right? Like you study it, you know it inside and out, the interior, the color you want, you know everything about it, right? And it's all, and you can hear the sound. Like I like Porsches, and as a kid, I could hear it coming from miles away, a Porsche, because it has a certain sound to it. And anytime I would hear it, I just would know that that's what that car was. And it's the same with relationships. If you had a girlfriend, boyfriend, that you were already at that time as a kid stepping into an unknown reality and contemplating that unknown reality and beginning to hardwire there to that unknown, which meant you were thinking about something you'd never thought about before, and you were chemically downloading from that unknown reality, right? And then your neurology, the more you contemplate and you look at pictures and you study and examine, I'm convinced this is exactly what Elon Musk did. Even though Elon Musk is like freaking brilliant, he absolutely entrenched himself in SpaceX or with Tesla. He studied. This guy I don't think he finished college. And same with Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. They get into what they are so into, so excited about. I guarantee you, though, I have to think about this. Yeah, I've listened to Steve Jobs, his audio biography, and Elon, and these people really, they stayed focused. They didn't get distracted by their external environment. They had a vision so clear inside of them that they continued to connect with that reality more than their current circumstances. I'm going to say that again. They continued to connect more with that reality that they were wanting, that unknown reality. Then they got distracted with their current set of circumstances. Your current set of circumstances, if they're not supportive of you, I don't know if you can walk away or I don't know what you need to do to stop it, but that distraction is not worth it. It's just so not worth it. You're just getting chemical hits from the past. And when I have clients who come to me with big distractions in their life, I think to myself, well, you just haven't grown big enough. You haven't expanded into an unknown reality or contemplated an unknown reality greater than your current set of circumstances, right? When you contemplate something bigger than yourself, bigger than you've ever thought before, like, again, back to the simplicity of that girlfriend, that boyfriend, that car, that first job, you're contemplating an unknown reality that's way greater than you've ever been in your entire life, right? And then then hopefully that neurology, that situation ends up appearing. And so as adults, though, what happens is as we get older, we are hardwired in certain ways, like, set in our set in our patterns or our routines. Those routines are no good. They're just, some of them are, but generally for business expansion, not so much. You've got to grow beyond that, and especially if it comes with a lot of distractions in your life right now. If you've got the distractions going on, again, like resentments and anger and all that, or addictions, that is such a distraction for you to override your current reality. And healing those distractions, or letting go of those distractions, and then getting into the contemplation of what you want to create. Well, let's say you have no idea what you want to create, right? What do you start asking yourself, like, what are you drawn to? Like, what are you on your off time? Do you look at travel magazines? Do you go by and look at furniture at stores? Do you love designing? Do you love, studying art history or music? Or what is it that you do on your off time, or theater, or chemical engineering? Or what is it that you go and study more of, or have a look at? Or what type of books do you read? What is it? You're getting an inkling from your future reality, so to speak, just by your contemplations and what you go towards. So again, if you want to call in, I'd be happy to help you with any business stuff. You can call 504-566-9696. We're talking about contemplating future realities right now, the importance of that, downloading from that chemically and neurologically, because the more you're in contemplation of that future self and bringing that to your now, you begin to hardwire chemically and neurologically in that way. And it's like your future will pull you forward into that reality. One time I just thought of this. There was a group of scientists, and they had a bunch of us form. They come together at the Le Méridien Hotel in Los Angeles in a big ballroom, and they wanted to teach us the importance of focus. And they pulled out these 5x7 index cards, and they had us draw a picture on that card. And then they had us. There was 200 people. We each had 2 cards apiece, 2 5x7 cards apiece, and they gave us a pack of crayons, had us draw our picture of something we wanted to create. And they asked us to leave the ballroom, and then we had to when we came back like 20 minutes later, they handed us a blindfold as we walked into the ballroom. And when you walked in, you saw the white cards taped up on the periphery walls of the ballroom, and they were face down, like you couldn't see the drawing on the card. So all you saw were a bunch of white cards taped all around this ballroom. And they taught us this meditation. And basically the meditation is you had to, every time, because you were supposed to walk, the idea was to find your card blindfolded. So you got like 200 people, 400 cards, and you're supposed to find your own card blindfolded, right? Like, this is impossible. And so, but the deal is anytime you lost your focus, like the instructions were, keep your picture in the mind that you drew. Just keep it in your mind, no matter what. But if somebody stepped on your toes, or somebody bumped into you, or you lost your focus, you stopped. You had to stop and refocus, stop and refocus. Oh, somebody just jabbed me in the nose. Stop, refocus. I just got punched in the gut. Because people are all walking around this ballroom blindfolded, right? So you're bumping into 1 million people. I must have stopped and refocused 55,000 times. But anyway, bottom line is, one person found, 1 card, and I think 2 people, can't remember how what the actual thing was, but there were a certain amount of people that found their cards, and then there was one person who found both their cards. Happy to say I was that person. I was able to, I just followed directions to stop and refocus. So I say that to you. It's about stopping, refocus, contemplating of that future reality, downloading future from that future chemically and neurologically, getting so involved with that reality and healing those distractions that have you distracted right now, getting rid of them, and really overcoming any addictions or anything that you need to do. And we're going to pick this up in a few minutes because we're getting ready to go to commercial break. See you in a bit. The Conscious Life Expo is excited to announce our virtual event February 19th to the 21st. COVID lockdown will continue into February, impacting the opening of the LAX Hilton to events and conferences. We have organized the Expo as a virtual event, including a customized designed 3D virtual exhibit hall and multi-channel live stream conference. Through our virtual partners, the Expo will be able to broadcast around the country and around the world, becoming a global forum and marketplace for products, motivation, community, and progressive ideas. Join us for the 2021 Conscious Life Expo. Hi there, this is Monique Guild. Welcome back to the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. This is my first show today here in New Orleans. I am from New Orleans. I went to school at McDonough 15 in the French Quarter, and then I went to school uptown. McGee's. So I love New Orleans. I love it so much. It is one of the most beautiful cities ever. The food, the music, I don't need to tell you guys. I know you know too how amazing it is here. The people, the people are so nice. I love it so much. And I'm so glad I am here, and I'm back and forth between here and Los Angeles, and I'm thrilled to be here now. But what we were talking about a little while ago, again, if you're just joining us, my name is Monique Guild. I'm a futurist, and I'm a turnaround and development strategist and also a business intuitive. Now, what does all that mean? It means that I have a business ability that I actually inherited as a kid. I mean, I didn't inherit it as a kid. I inherited it from my dad and my grandmother. And my dad was brilliant. He was a doctor, and he could have a patient walk in the door and tell you a lot about that person before they open their mouth. And I knew as a kid, I didn't really realize it until a little bit later on, that when people would talk about business stuff, it was like a film would run in my mind, and I just knew things about business. I remember one time my mom and I were in the French Quarter, and we were talking to this Napoleon. His name was Napoleon. He was an artist in the French Quarter. This is in this, I'm going to date myself. This was, 70s, or late 70s, and Napoleon was talking about doing some sort of business thing, and I said something, and my mom looked at him, and she said, she's really good with business stuff, and it's been happening with me ever since I was a kid, and that skill got super developed because of a result of the environment I grew up in. I got a lot of exercise in doing what I do. So with that said, the environments that you come from, you develop certain abilities, certain skills, and that skill set later on can become your greatest advantage. It really can. If you, just make sure that there's no addictions or distractions as a result of that environment. Because a lot of people, if you come from the environment I come from, I could have ended up, which I did for a while actually, being, drinking way too much and being distracted by others and getting into crazy relationships. And this is years ago, but I learned, I took care of, addressed all that. And as I was addressing all that, my skills really started to emerge. And by the time I was 28 years old, I ended up having a write-up in the LA Times, and I was featured on the Metro section, on the cover of the Metro section, and they called me the bubbly Sherlock Holmes, and they did a full-on interview and things like that. So your background can be to your benefit, but it can also be a big distraction if you allow that neurology to continue that wasn't to your benefit as you got older. Because what will happen is that your chemicals will flow in your body as a result of that thinking, and it will cause you to attract bigger and bigger circumstances to come into your life. And once you identify what those circumstances are or the distractions are, and you just flip it, it's the flip of the coin. I mean, if you had large distractions like myself, I had these chaotic relationships and I was drinking too much and all this wild stuff. But once I flipped all that, immediately things started to change for me, and I learned to use, well, let me say it this way. For me, I believe I was outstretched as a kid. I had way too much responsibility. I had way too much going on, way too many things to take care of. Zero childhood. But that ended up being to my benefit, because for me, I get to expand in business. I get to use that responsibility and all that stuff to my advantage now in business. I'm used to running large situations or working in large situations or working in very, very chaotic situations, like helping my client, Isabel, prepare for a conversations with the United Nations Chemical Warfare Department. And she worked for the World Economic Forum, overseeing the General Council of Weapons of Mass Destruction, Terrorism, and Organized Crime. That's easy peasy for me. I grew up in it. Not really, but, it was pretty chaotic where I was. But I learned to use that to my advantage now. And so everything, I hear people stay so distracted by what happened to them as kids and what went down and what happened and all this. And that, as you become older, if you don't learn to heal that neurology and overcome it, and not only overcome it, but expand beyond it and attach to a future reality you've never experienced before and get excited about that future, you will just stay stuck in that same old repetitive pattern, the same old distraction, the same old attracting the same old circumstances, the same old chaos over and over. And it's like, just go ahead and get on with it. Stay focused on what you want to create. Stay focused on what you're developing and contemplating, and jump into that. But I tell you that a lot of people are afraid to step into the unknown, and that's what keeps people stuck. So they'd rather stay stuck in the known, even though it's chaotic and it feels bad, and they're having to deal with, all this insanity internally or externally, than step into an unknown and contemplate a greater reality. So I'm all about stepping into the unknown, hardwiring chemically and neurologically to that unknown. And I teach my clients how to set these intuitive goals, these soul's purpose goals. How do you know when you're on your intuitive goal soul track? How do you know when you're off of it? And we get to heal blocks like grief, resentment, negative thinking. And then I teach people how to identify and trust their own intuition, which is key. When you really begin to hear how you're being intuitively guided, and you heal those blocks like grief, resentment, addictions. I'll say it again, addictions. The sky is the limit. As big as all that chaos was in your upbringing or is now, even if losing your job. There's so many people that are out of jobs right now, so many families, so many things. And that stress of that situation is so serious, especially with what, the double impact with having COVID and everything right now. But when you begin to really stop and stop your body from running the show chemically, because that stress is it becomes a chemical addiction within itself, and it becomes a distraction. But through like meditation, through journaling, through several things I've mentioned earlier, you can stop that flow. And in essence, you're saying to the body, no, you're not going to run the show because you're more addicted to the familial history than you are ready to step into an unknown future. I'm not going to allow you to run that show. And once you stop all that stuff and you begin to get in contemplation of what excites you, what are you excited about? What did you used to be excited about when you were a kid? What did you love to do? What were your dreams earlier on? Even as simple as like, what magazine would you pick up out of a newsstand? What would you go and study? What is something that you love to? I know when I need to take a break and kind of step away from everything. I love, I tell you, I love moving into a new place and designing it and buying new furniture and setting it up and creating the atmosphere for the new furniture. I mean, I just love all that stuff. I love studying design. I love all that. What do you love to do? Like, what do you, when you say, oh, I love that song, I love that music, I love singing, I love, beginning to reconnect to that. And you're thinking, well, Monique, how the heck is this going to help me right now when I need to feed my family? And how is this going to help? It will. I promise you it will. If you want to call in, we've got a couple more minutes left here. Got about a minute, 504-556-9696. I'd be happy to help you. I'm here Wednesdays, every Wednesday, the Monique Guild Method Radio Show. And I'm looking forward to your calls. And there you have it. Thank you so much.